Hey everybody, welcome to the Heady Chronicle. I'm your host, Dan Ulloa. I'm the editor and publisher of Heady NJ. We're a cannabis community media company covering politics, business, and culture here in Jersey. So our news company has grown from a humble blog at headynj.com with our social media at heady_NJ on Instagram, where we get more than 100,000 views a month across the cannabis community and industry, while Meta hates on us periodically. So, now we're trying to expand into podcasts and video shows, but a little bit about me. I got into being a Heady NJ editor in 2019 as a humble freelance writer. Last year, Insider NJ named me the 25th most influential person in New Jersey cannabis. The 26th is going to be our newest NJ Cannabis Regulatory Commissioner, but that's another story. So, now I'm trying to get into show business here and be colorful showman, figuring stuff out, colorful character, and in my beautiful office here in the suburbs of Essex County. So, we want to spread the good word on the sacred herb and all the news about it, by any and all means. So, we've been releasing these bit by bit. This is our 11th episode, and it's our first remote interview episode. So, I want to introduce my guest here. Stu Zakim is a communications specialist as president of Bridge Strategic Communications. He specialized in promoting legal cannabis companies, including those that are underground, legacy to legal. So while Stu's also resident of Essex County, he's had a great career working in other legal cannabis states, in show business as an expert in public relations. Wanted to have him here. He's a good guy, good experience. Also gave me good advice, which led to me being Heady NJ editor. So welcome, Stu. How are you?
I'm doing great, Dan. Thanks for having me on this beautiful day.
Nice. Yeah, it's like hella hot here in Jersey. I did not expect that.
No, it's like we go from one extreme to the other.
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy that way. So yeah, tell us about yourself.
So I've been a career public relations professional. Actually went to school at Boston University for my degree in PR. And from there was lucky enough to get my first job at Columbia Pictures, which set me on a career path, as you mentioned, in showbiz. And what's interesting, as I jumped into cannabis in about 2009, cannabis has been a thread through my career, because when I was in film, I worked on a lot of classic stoner films. And also when I was at Showtime, helped launch Weeds. So it's almost karma that I am in my last chapter of my professional life in the cannabis space.
Nice. Yeah, you've always had like so many like great stories there. A lot of like great movies. Weed, love Weeds. It's a great show about Nancy selling weed. There
Yes.
in Cali was always like really interesting, like legacy to legal issues. It's really funny because like the show ended in the future, which was about like 5 years ago now, which is low key insane.
But it's interesting because one of my big drivers is eradicating the stigma that has surrounded cannabis since I started consuming it many, many years ago, to where we still are today. And I think, in a way, entertainment programming that uses cannabis as just part of the storyline rather than making it about cannabis and featuring stereotypical pictures of stoners only helps make that happen, get rid of the stigma. And we're seeing it more and more in a range of shows, and especially in the studio, which I thought was a great program. So it's, as I said, that the way it all connected, to me, is pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, it's a really interesting point. Like thinking about like the larger like cannabis movement. You got politics here. You have like the hardcore activists inspire wave after wave of other people to grow the movement. Social justice people, business people, unique writers like myself. And then you figure you have like that way, and then you have like the larger cultural, way of like public perception and public normalization that translates into support for like cannabis legalization via politics here in Jersey and the United States. So it's really interesting to think about that. It's really like an interesting thing, smoking like a little weed that way. Like Snoop Dogg's done like a good amount of that kind of stuff. Like Jim Belushi had a show on Discovery my uncle liked. So that was like
Right.
really interesting. So it's really
No, I
funny.
think it's really quite amazing the broad leap that has taken place. Yet we're still in a situation where, it's not legal on a federal basis, which has many impacts as we only know too well. Um, and in New Jersey, where 76% of the vote, or I'm sorry, 67% of the voters approved this for legalization, and we're only in 23% of the towns, shows that that stigma is still there.
Yeah.
And it kind of blows me away because if they looked at it objectively, as tax revenue that could be used to hire more police, build more schools, more firemen, all things that benefit the community, I think a lot of that resistance would go away. But we'll find out. We have a new governor, and hopefully she can help facilitate some of this.
Yeah, that's a good point about the towns. A lot of these issues, like, you know, happen here in Jersey are like big in like in other like legal states. Like California, I think the majority of the land is not like an illegal town that way. I think I read because like California is like Jersey, where you have like a lot of big counties, urban counties, but they have like a lot more middle of nowhere. We don't have too much middle of nowhere, as per my map behind you. So then it's a whole interesting like issue that way. We've made the towns is so hard because it's like we had such a great movement. You, me, we were all part of the movement for the statewide, and then we had to sort of redo the movement in like more than the 500 towns that make up New Jersey. It's 21 counties, as
Correct.
pictured behind me. So then it's like hella hard. Like you want to go fight like some like stupid hick town, and then it's like it sucks. So we've had like this piecemeal movement here and there. We make progress, bit by bit, so it's difficult. But then you have the other catch of having like only a few towns is people go like vicious against each other. But I guess that's a question to ask you, a good segue to ask you about your experience with legal cannabis clients.
So I find it really rewarding, first of all, with working with legal cannabis brands, whether they be retailers or brands themselves, uh, because then it goes from fighting the fight, like you were just indicating, to how do you manage a regular business? Because these are regular businesses. The only problems they have that other non-cannabis industry ones do is on a federal level, they cannot deduct operating expenses, which is a major obstacle for the expansion of legal cannabis retailers, keeps the legacy market alive, which impacts the state in a very negative way by leaving millions of tax dollars on the table. But I think when you do work with one and you see the breakthrough and that people realize the world isn't going to end. One of my favorite stories about a New Jersey store that I helped open in Boonton is the Morristown paper, which is one of the few dailies left in New Jersey, made a page one story with the headline that I could only fantasize about. PTA mom opened cannabis dispensary in Boonton. So when you think about all the negativity going by the wayside and this positive message comes out on page one of a daily newspaper with a pretty large circulation, it goes a long way towards my ultimate goal of changing public opinion regarding it. And I think I also had a pretty big breakthrough recently with a dispensary in Bloomfield, where they have 9 dispensaries in a town that doesn't have that big a population, but in 2 directly across the
Yeah.
street from each other.
Yeah.
But that said, this this is Blue Oak, which is a really nice micro dispensary. And I had been working towards getting AARP, which is the largest circulation magazine in America, to cover cannabis and the growing consumption among seniors for quite a while. And
Yeah, that's
then,
always like a big issue because seniors would benefit it, but they would benefit the most, but they're also against it the most.
well, because they don't understand it. You know, it's
Right.
changed a lot since we were all in high school. And AARP reached out, a reporter who I happen to know, and said, I'm doing a story about, how to help seniors make smart decisions when using cannabis. Do you have a dispensary owner that I could talk to? And I thought of the woman who owns Blue Oak as like the perfect candidate, and she was. So we ended up with a full page story in the most current issue of AARP. And when you talk about swimming upstream and then getting that breakthrough, this is that kind of breakthrough because the scope of the platform is just incredible. And the validation that it brings to the world you and I live in of cannabis to legitimize it is there's no price you can put on something like that.
Yeah, that's always interesting, like spreading the good word around like the normies and moderates. My audience, our community, pretty much like agrees that weed is good. We need weed. Heady NJ is for like home grow legalization and federal cannabis legalization via descheduling. We remove cannabis as from being a Schedule 1 narcotic off the list of controlled substances. And then, we could do the business issues, Section 280E of the IRS tax code as previously mentioned, hurts like a lot of businesses that are like in the license industry, plant touching. This is a media company. I love deducting my expenses. I love writing my mileage.
As do I,
This
Dan,
is running on
because
a shoestring. Like, we're not making $1 million on this until we get like legalization on the federal level. And that's like the weird thing about this because it's been like one of these things where everybody's like, it's gonna be here soon, and then it's like it's 2026, and it's difficult that Biden didn't make more progress. Like, I don't trust Trump. Like, we're seeing like a lot of like things that like that's like crazy under him on other issues besides cannabis. And then like I don't like Schedule 3 in the first place. I know a lot of people that don't like the idea of it as a Schedule 3 idea. I know a lot of the big MSOs like it, but I know like the 280E thing like hurts a lot of people, and it's difficult but like that's why I like descheduling because we can do business and justice at the same time. So
it
that's
also
always like a
hurts
big issue with like the conflicts of these. Yeah.
it also hurts the small businesses, you know, um, because the not being able to write off your rent, your overhead, your accountant, your lawyer, your employees and their benefits adds more risk to a very risky business to begin with.
Right.
And we know at the end of the day, cannabis is a retail business. That's what we are. It's selling products to consumers the same way Macy's does. The difference is Macy's can write off all those costs and it doesn't impact their bottom line. Here, it can make the difference between survival or having to sell your license, which I think a lot of the outsiders, being pharmaceutical and alcohol industry, are hovering like buzzards.
Yeah. People have been
Uh,
saying that about the big tobacco, big alcohol, big pharma. So it's really difficult, and that's kind of like the double-edged sword of legalization. Does this look like a better idea? Like, if it's legal for them to kind of like scoop it up versus like Heady's always been about like promoting the little guy, people that got caught, the underground legacy illegal. For example, like local people that love to smoke weed and want to get in the business, for example. So then it's really hard. We're trying to craft like rules that protect those people. Because the way people think of like the economy and like these fuckers, yeah, we can curse on this show, by the way.
okay.
These fuckers, like in the way they organize like the economy, is basically all about like the rules and regulations and like regulatory capture. That's a good political science vocabulary word, guys. I was a political poli-sci major that way. So regulatory capture is when these big corporations fuck with the rules so they can make more money. And they do that via lobby and via political contributions, like by like doing a lot of things like that, dominating the market. So then you take your large advantages and you make them like unfair. And then like we're hearing a whole thing about like out of Ohio about like an MSO cartel conspiracy, antitrust conspiracy is like great because like everyone's been like it's really difficult when like the news like proves your conspiracies and like because they're saying out of Ohio that this is a national conspiracy, and like we've been seeing it here in Jersey. It's been really hard here in Jersey. We had these six fuckers that were like assholes, these MSOs, mediocre weed, bad labor standards, like bad weed, expensive weed. And we've been fighting that. We've been fighting for the little guys. Look at this whole office. You don't see any MSO swag in here. Look at all the swag I got from our local.
No, I agree 100% with you, Dan. I go out of my way not to purchase MSO products. I know all the sub brands. I'm probably a more educated consumer.
Right. You don't know the fucking brands because
right.
Curaleaf doesn't sell Curaleaf. It sells like Select and other fucking brands. And then
but it's all
for every product line, like the concentrates one. Not all the MSOs are equally bad. Like we've seen, like MPX seems like to have like more values. Like they were not named in the lawsuit. TerrAscend was also not named in that lawsuit. Justice Block was not named in that lawsuit. But we have like all these fuckers like Ascend, which moved out of Montclair, moved out of the first New Jersey legal dispensary location they bought. Others Curaleaf, GTI, Rise. So a lot of big issues in cannabis.
A lot of interest because people see, and this is one of the benefits of having gotten into this early, what the financial upside will be eventually. Not immediately. I mean, clearly we're at where we're at is kind of ridiculous. There should be no barriers to the success of this industry, except those placed on us by the government, which is a result of, you mentioned the heavy lobbying efforts that these big companies make and the amount of money they spend on lobbying to make sure that they will get their chance. And it's unfortunate when people borrow money, friends, family, the way funding goes when you're a startup, and all of a sudden your rent goes up because the landlord says, I can do it.
Yeah.
And so what would normally be, say maybe a $5,000 bill a month for rent is now $20,000 because you're selling cannabis in your store. And in a city like Jersey City, where they overdid it with the amount of licenses that were given, whether for retail or for manufacturing and cultivation, for a 2 square mile town.
Jersey City's got to have more square miles than 2. I swore.
I don't know.
It is like so that's the catch. It's like we can focus on our Jersey things. I got a lot of attachments to bring up Jersey City. My dad went to high school there. Didn't much care for it. Left before it got fancy and gentrified. And now the question is, like, they've used every tool imaginable, including cannabis, to like fix up what used to be like a miserable hood post-industrial city. Now it's too fancy. So we got all these issues. And then the catch is, how many dispensaries is enough? The 11th guy will say 11, the 10th guy will say 10, the 12th guy will say 12. And onwards and upwards, up the number of ladders. 14 will say 14 is enough. 13 will be like, fuck the 14th guy. So then it's like, and then it's hard because like the first guy that can usually get in there is this shady son of a bitch. Like I just found like the guy, one of the first dispensaries that opened, it was called Downtown Flower, and one of the owners is a guy named Benny Shabtai. And it really fucking pains me to say that he was in the Epstein files and like assume the fucking worst. Like half those files haven't really been released, and like, but like if you're doing like the BFF texting or like the friend texting where you lose the rules of English. Yeah, it's always like the fact when you're like, hello, sir, how are you? That's like a more formal interview. You're getting to know a guy. This is like LOLs and like, are you with no Y? So then it's like, what the fuck is this shit? You being so friendly, but this shit is some bitch. So that's difficult.
It is, but it's inevitable. And not only in this business, I think in any business, as we're seeing the scope of people who are being outed as more and more of the files become public. And it is kind of surprising that Epstein wasn't more engaged in the cannabis industry at that point.
I don't
Um,
really want to fucking find that. I'd rather not find that. Like
I,
Boris
I,
Johnson, along with being like Vladimir Putin's like good friend, is like fucking children in the ass on an island. We don't really
yes,
need to learn such stories. There's enough horror. Like we got like enough stories on the machinations of like half these CEOs. The true lead CEO, who's a lady, Kim Rivers, and her buddiness with like Trump. The failure of that Florida like referendum because everybody thought it would only benefit them, and like the sheer amount of people who were like pro legacy in Florida who were like, fuck this referendum. So that's like difficult, It was a difficult position. We want to have like a broad movement. We want to have like nice companies. Some of these companies are good. People want cheap weed. A large company can sell like cheap
yes.
weed. That's always the
Well,
thing about this. I got into this through politics and I'm learning business lessons, but maybe you got more insight into all this.
I think in New Jersey, you want to talk about New Jersey versus New York in a way.
Yes, I did.
Um, so New Jersey has always been a proponent of basic regular retail policy, which is lost leaders bring people in with discounts, and that allows you to either just sell them that or upsell them to other products. And for a long time, New York has not allowed that. It's been done non-compliantly, but now is going to be compliant in New York. But I don't. Today is Monday, right?
It is
So
Monday, March 9th, 2026
okay,
AD.
so there's going to be some store in New Jersey that's offering 40% off because it's Monday, or a bunch of stores. So it does help the consumer, and consumers are definitely price driven.
Yeah.
Brand loyalty only exists amongst the connoisseurs, I'd have to say. But I think the general consumer, and not just in cannabis, but in any retail business, is driven by lower prices. So when you have all those stores in Jersey City offering really crazy discounts on their product, who win? Nobody. The only winner is the consumer. But as the state and the business owner are losers because the profit margins are so slim to begin with. It's not. It's very costly to be in this industry, depending whatever end you're on. If you're on the retail, cultivation, manufacturing, it's not cheap. The equipment and the manufacturing side, unless someone has actually seen it, really doesn't have a clue that when you buy that concentrate in the dispensary, what went into manufacturing that, and the kind of equipment that has monitors about temperature and all these other things. It's pretty amazing and shows you how technology is really what drives this industry. It used to be growing weed in your backyard, but now it's become a science and an
Yeah.
art.
That's always like the interesting things of like the positives and like negatives of like legalization. It's like it should be like an industry to grow the way we have like respectable industries around booze and tobacco for like hundreds of years. But then, we get all these red tape issues, these cost issues, barriers to entry. Barriers to entry, another good vocabulary word, guys, to say like the large MSOs love the barriers to entry to keep the little guys out. And the catch about Jersey City is there's like 2 dozen like little guys that have like opened now. Like my boy Hatham at Xena by my father's old Catholic high school. McGinley
Yeah.
Square is like really great. My boy Chris on the west side. We have, oh my god, I don't even want to like hurt somebody. There's so many shout outs to do if I really start getting into them. We have so many like, and like the Heights is a very interesting neighborhood where it's like very vibrant now. Like it used to be like people have some like horror hood stories, and now it's like fancy. The old mayor had like a multi-million-dollar house there, but now there's like 8 dispensaries in like a 20-minute walk, and it's like, who do I want to close? Like the guy who like
Right.
worked there, who's like an immigrant from like Albania, my boy Bash of Euphoria. Like Eliza, Hispanic, woman, veteran, is like a great person. We have so many. The Jefferson family, and it's like I gotta choose. It's hard. The thing about like Heady is like sometimes like these guys want to get you in the knife fight with like the people next to them, and then I'm like, sometimes they're not evil MSOs. Sometimes that's the thing we're seeing in Jersey. We're seeing the small MSO. small MSO is like the funniest thing because MSO usually means like large evil corporation. So saying small MSO is like funny, but like if we have like a guy who's like our Rocky, they succeed, they make progress, they come here, they got a good formula. It's like, is this the evil guy? Like they're not the ones in like the back rooms, with like fucking around with the antitrust cartel issues. So then it's difficult. We got a few of those. We got like a few of those in Jersey now, and like it's hard to keep everybody out. I guess that's what New York has done or tried harder to keep the MSOs out. We passed our legalization. Actually, the anniversary was recent because it was February 22nd. So
Wow.
we're now from the signing of the Cannabis Regulatory Enforcement and Marijuana Modernization Act, CREMA. CREMA. Oh my god, what a funny acronym. Cream is like a Wu-Tang
Yeah.
song, and then
that,
like I
that,
think
that,
the former executive director had that Wu-Tang pin. Which is pretty
well, you talk about Wu-Tang
yeah.
and the competitiveness or the toughness, the survival in retail. Now they had a beautiful store in downtown Newark.
They did. I met Raekwon. Raekwon was one of these podcasts. I was like, guys, this is a great idea. This guy's never gonna close. It's Raekwon. He's been fucking
And
famous forever. Oh my god. They didn't even start they weren't even open for a fucking 12 months. And I was so
exactly.
angry. I had like some car trouble, so I missed sort of the ribbon cutting, and then there was just like a hella party that whole time for like 3 hours. I was like there covering, but I was like, oh my god, they were supposed to open a lounge, but there was a lot of issues with like their landlord, like you were saying, like their landlord was charging them too much, and then it's like you put like a dispensary in an area where people know a guy to get weed is then like really hard for the guy who's like doing it legit, and then you have like a turf war with a guy who has like more street cred than you, and then like more um well, rather, he's more popular with the community. So then, yeah, they closed within 12 months. Ice-T opened in Jersey City. Ice-T from, like, Law and Order, and
Yeah.
Ice-T
Yep.
from The Rapper, and Ice-T that did a Rick and Morty cameo.
Yes, that they closed even faster than the store in Newark.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes in a way to demonstrate that consumers are initially attracted to the big name retailer, whether it's because they're fans of the band or the actor or whatever. But where I think the mom and pops can thrive in a way that the MSO stores can't is by finding these craft cultivators that exist. And we know they're here in the state and are producing product that I would be proud to light up, as opposed to some of the MSO generated
Yeah.
brands and sub brands that, whether it's pre-rolls with cigarette paper that burn in 2 minutes. I'm not mentioning the brand, but anyone
Yeah,
who
it's
knows
a,
will know who it is.
yeah, it's
And
probably a
they
lot of
are
shitty ass brands we could hate on, but that's another story. Let's say that for another episode.
right. But in this case, I think um, as the consumers identify which strains they like, which brands they like, and the customer service that a dispensary can offer you, especially if you're not a super educated consumer at this point. My reason for going to certain stores is I enjoy the experience of being in the store. As with any retail, I'm sorry to keep drawing it back to retail, but at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. And if I'm going to go shop at one store versus another, it's going to be that they offer product that I like, and that the bud tenders that I speak with or the owner is knowledgeable. I mean, I'm a tougher customer because I'm pretty knowledgeable. And when I ask them questions and I know more than they do, that's not a good thing. And I probably wouldn't return to that store. I still want to learn. I still want to know. And as certain forms of consumption become more prevalent, not just flour, but edibles and concentrate and all that. So there's a lot of different labeling that exists on these. What's tier one? What's tier two? What's tier three when it comes to buying concentrate for dabbing? I never even saw that breakdown.
Oh, that's a good
And
question. I'm more of a flower head that way. Concentrate's a whole like mile dive deep down there, but yeah, it's really fun that we have like a vibrant market now in 2026 where you can go to like a more independent dispensary and get like a craft cannabis, quality gummies from like local guys here in Jersey. Some of the small MSOs that way. It's taken a while to get here and it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to have like the legacy versus legal fight too. Where
Right.
we have like this is like a thing that became a thing out of like the legacy. Like I got caught for weed. I loved weed when I was 18, 20 years ago. Is that how math works? Oh, I guess it was, yeah, because it was January, because my birthday's in February. It's been 20 years since I started smoking weed in January of '06 at college in Syracuse.
Wow.
Yeah. So fun times that way, in weed. And it's difficult, because now we have like a lot of legacy. Like a lot of the guys have like hearts of gold, but then we see like these bodega guys, so they're selling this mediocre weed with like spray shit. A lot of this shit from China. There's a lot of rumors about that. And then it's like we've had like such like legacy like that, and then like smoke shops like selling crazy hemp shit. Now in Jersey, now we're gonna have like a crackdown by 420 is gonna be like interesting. They say they really
Well,
want some of the bad actors. They don't want any more like hemp flower in the markets by 420.
I think what we've seen in more in the way of infused beverages is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Delta 8, Delta 9, whatever it is. So Delta 8 you can buy in the gas station, like you buy a bottle of soda.
Yeah. So
Delta
this is like
9
yeah. You're saying I'm
is, you can some of the bigger wine retailers or Stu Leonard's. I couldn't believe it. I went into Stu Leonard's and a good percentage of their beverage area has section for hemp infused beverages because New Jersey doesn't allow THC. It has to be hemp infused. Whereas you go into New York, it is THC, but it's only capped at 10%. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's so funny
they're
all these little rules. It's almost like the dog and the hound and the pup and the canine, and like they're all like fucking synonyms at this rate.
and
So then it's like,
it shouldn't, and to that degree, it shouldn't really be regulated by the state. It should be driven by customer value. So if
oh,
you
well,
go to
that's
a liquor
another story.
store, you got Johnny Walker Black, which is the low end, and you got Johnny Walker Blue, which is the high end. And consumers make the difference based on what they enjoy and also what they can afford.
Yeah, the
That choice
juice
is
is
taken
gone.
away from us as cannabis consumers in that area. But now I'm seeing a proliferation of these energy drink size
Yeah,
bottles
yeah, it's
of
like
a
a
hundred
whiskey
hundred
shot. Yeah,
milligram beverage, and they recommend a 10 milligram dose, like fill the cap and take a sip. Well, it depends on your tolerance.
right. Like if you're like
To
a hardcore consumer, like you don't like, and a lot of the legacy guys are like that. Oh, that's too weak for me. Fuck that noise. I need 100, 200, 300 milligrams. I'm like, the normies kind of mind getting a little high. The normie, like a lot of the newbies are different than a normie. We have our new cannabis consumers in this new era. They like getting a little high. They don't want to like get like crazy high. They like that. Like I give my wife some petite, lovely woman. Shout out to Jody. She gets like half a gummy. It's like 5 milligrams. She likes that. The cans are like 5, 10 milligrams. You get like a
right.
buzz. So it's really interesting to see the cans. I've been sent a lot of cans. We've had some articles on the cans, but like it's so weird with hemp versus cannabis. It's like brother hemp and brother cannabis. Like once upon a time set out to be legal. One brother went east, one brother went west, and now their grandchildren are fighting. And then
Yep.
it's hard. It's really hard because it wasn't like that long ago to say it was 3 generations. It was like,
No, you're correct. When the Farm Bill first passed, which ironically was led by Lindsey Graham, because Kentucky hemp was one of its biggest crops,
well, yeah, Mitch
and
McConnell and Rand Paul are the senators from
oh,
Kentucky. Yeah,
these guys, these you talk about politicians who are two-faced or three-faced or whatever. If it's good for their state, it's good for their state, and damn the public because it's generating revenue. All of a sudden, well, I don't know about that. And then I think politically we're in a real tough spot because,
yeah,
as you mentioned, Trump did a token executive decision, right, to reschedule cannabis from 1 to 3. But it wasn't just up to him. It had to be signed by that secretary. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, and it expired on January 28th.
Yeah, it did fucking expire. This is like the thing is like all these people. This is like the thing about cannabis is that it's sort of bipartisan, nonpartisan, because we have the Republican libertarians, along with like the Democratic moderates and the Democratic progressives and the Democratic socialists, who all like legalization across the spectrum from left to right. You know, it's the moderates that are like the problem a lot of times. The traditional values people. So then it's really difficult because then we see like a lot of problems that way in forming this coalition, and we see like a lot of guys we can't really agree with, like on like a lot of other issues. We can make some progress with like fucking hemp and cannabis. Like Matt Gaetz was the only son of a bitch who not confirmed by the Senate, and like he was like the most pro cannabis son of a bitch. But he's probably more of an MSO pro cannabis versus like our legacy and craft cannabis friends.
Well, because the MSOs have spent tons of money on lobbying.
Yeah. More vocabulary words, guys. Lobbying, political contributions, PACs, you know, influence. This is very difficult. You know, we're seeing like the nature of this, and a lot of cannabis people are disillusioned. A lot of people are disillusioned with the nature of politics, and it's fucking hard. You know, to do these things. I've had other adventures in politics that are like, you know, if you have a governor and like legislature that likes you in Jersey, you make progress. You know, when I was 22, the medical bill passed in Jersey for cannabis legalization, and my friend and I were joking and be like, "We shall overcome." Like it'll be like Cali. Like you always hear those stories in Cali. No, it wasn't like Cali at all. It wasn't fucking like Cali, so it was ass for 8 fucking years.
But the MSOs have gone out of their way to make the medical patient numbers in New Jersey go down precipitously. I mean, you might have access to the actual data, but you know, and those that do sell both adult use and medical in the same location, compliantly, they're supposed to offer the medical patient the better product. That doesn't happen. I mean, in stores that I've gone to, who will go nameless, just for the sake of protecting both of us, they push the adult side has the better product.
MSO? Can we say it's an MSO?
It is an MSO.
It's like a Chad, which is like an opportunist who doesn't like weed but just wants to make money.
No, they're an MSO that has multiple locations within the state.
Oh, of course, it's a large MSO with multiple locations. You see, our little guys are more earnest, you know. It's very difficult.
And when I asked to speak to the manager as a medical patient, I said, what's up with this? And she goes, what are you complaining about? We're not going to charge you the tax, and we won't take it out of your allocation. So be happy. And I'm like,
they're not very good at customer service, the MSOs. They're not very good at labor, quality, customer service, you know, like empowering people. Like they don't like home grow. So then it's all the terrible things often in one company.
Right.
Like that's difficult. The thing about medical though, Stu, is like I've thought about this because I was a medical patient and I'm still a medical patient. I don't like to tell people all my problems with my pancreas and my digestion and my anxiety and my depression. But so like the sacred herb is great for me. I love weed. I smoke every day. But the catch is though, Stu, is like it's over the counter for me. So like very similarly, like I had a prescription for omeprazole, which I can similarly get like over the counter, and it's less of a fucking hassle to buy when it's over the counter when they just have like the little box, and it's the same thing. My doctor was like, "That's cool."
Yeah, well, I remember when I asked my account, doing taxes one year, can I write off what I spend on medical cannabis? Because you can write off what you don't get reimbursed by insurance for regular medicine, and cannabis is medicine. And he started laughing and goes, well, what would that be? I'm allowed 3 ounces a month. So an average ounce in New Jersey is 400 something. So do the numbers. And he goes, that will never happen. If that were to happen, if they actually allowed us statewide to write off that expense as they do with other medicines, it would make it much more affordable for the patients who don't have the resources to buy it. You have to have money. Since we don't have home grow, you have to have money to consume cannabis. It's not an inexpensive product. And even with the discounting that goes in, it still limits a lot of people who don't have access to those kind of dollars. So there's a lot to be improved upon within the state. And we only can hope that with our new governor, maybe she'll have a more open view and perhaps put some different executives into the regulation commission here, and the kind of movement that we need to happen will happen. But that aside, as I mentioned, I've always been a consumer, but I've really only been in the business since 2009, which once again is still pretty early. And this has only been, even though I've been a long-time consumer, I've only actually been in the PR side of cannabis since 2009, which is still a pretty early time to get in. Because that's when Washington State was going legal, and someone there asked me if I could help them manage their media. And then I realized it's like any other product. I'm just selling weed, which is great. So I got engaged in the New York market, New Jersey market then. But prior to that,
2009 is pretty early there versus like 2019, 2012, 2015.
No, it was. And it was a very small handful of people.
That's impressive. That's pretty OG status there. Oh, no.
It is definitely OG status. And we've all lived through the transition to a more legitimate area. But I think I was attracted to jump into cannabis because I had built a pretty good reputation as a publicist in other areas that were part of culture. I mean, cannabis is a cultural thing.
Yeah, that's always the thing about like celebrities smoking weed, movies with weed, all sorts of ways weed is culture, music, especially rock songs, rap songs, reggae songs. I like all songs of weed. All of them. I got a 40 song playlist of weed songs. We got multiple genres in that respect. Weed. I like weed as a wide coalition. I'll talk to the suits in weed. I'll talk to the Rastas. I'll talk to guys smoking J's in the street. I'll talk to the bougie people with my blazer. So it's always like fascinating that way. I like everybody in Jersey smoking weed, part of the coalition, part of the movement, part of the culture. So it's always like really interesting because it can be everybody, literally.
Right. But it's an industry that is for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have to consume to be in the space.
Well, that's like a difficult thing because, a lot of people say the people that don't consume have less values quite often. But, you also get people, I'm asthmatic. I was raised in a strict like religious background, for example. So there's always that, so there's always like ways. There's such nuance in the industry and the people in the industry. Hence why you should go to HeadyNJ.com.
Right. Well, but listen, it is about the industry. What draws me and keeps me engaged in this space is the community and the diversity of the community. That, I could be, and nobody ever says no when you say, hey, let's go smoke a joint together. It's a lot different experience, even though it's legal. It was definitely different when it was illegal because we were breaking the law together, which was a real bonding tool.
Yeah, the camaraderie of being like outlaws.
Yes, but there was nothing else that touched that. And I think it really played a big part in my decision to focus in this area because all of a sudden I could be talking to an accountant or a lawyer or a fellow stoner. It didn't really matter. We were all connected. And this community doesn't care if you're white, black, Latino, Jewish, Catholic, Islam, whatever. There's really no filter like that. We welcome everybody. And that kind of sense of community is incredibly unique in today's really divisive world.
Yeah, that's why I always
And,
like weed. It always helped me as like a shy writer. It always like gives you something like to bond about, talk about that way. And I've smoked weed and hung out with people across Jersey. You get people in South Jersey, more Republicans, they like weed. You get people in Patterson, they like weed. Very diverse, different crowds, different music.
right.
Everybody's smoking weed.
And that's what makes this industry, I think, so unique, is that it bridges the gap really between different populations, because we may not unite on politics, we may not unite on a lot of things. The one thing we do is we all love to get high. And whether it's smoking flower, which is my preference, I do like dabbing. Edibles make no difference to me. My body doesn't respond to it. The liver doesn't process it, unfortunately. Beverages do work. The stronger, the better. But once again, no one's ever died of an overdose of cannabis, as we know.
That's true. Nobody has died of weed ever. Jim Belushi wishes John Belushi smoked a fuck ton more weed. No cocaine, no heroin. Weed.
Right.
You wake up, and then you have a nice day. Maybe you have some water in the morning if you've really been smoking and you get like some stuff, but then like, no, you'll be fine.
But you're functional. We are not.
Yeah, no alcohol, no hangover.
You're not going to see a fight. If you go to a trade show party, you're not going to see fights break out because people have been doing shots, and they could be doing bong hits. It's a different thing,
I always thought about that, how like whiskey and like liquor makes people like angry versus like, I always thought about that. If you stepped on somebody's like foot in like a bar, like some people might be like very violent if they got whiskey, but if there's weed, be like, oh,
they're like, okay, hey man, it's chill, it's okay, and that's once again,
these things happen.
Yeah, and that's what makes what keeps me engaged in this space. It's it's competitive. It's the more it becomes successful, the more it will morph into traditional industry with, stealing of trade secrets and trying to get the genetics of one strain over another. All the kinds of nasty stuff that has happened on the West Coast will morph here into the East Coast, but we're still a way away from that. And I really do think that with unemployment and there is a home for people. If you get laid off and you're in your 40s or 50s, and your industry is essentially not there, there is a home for those people in cannabis because we're still growing, and we need the traditional roles that are in corporate America. It's not, in spite of what people think, you're not just long hair sitting around rolling giant joints that look beautiful. No, you got to have supply chain management. You need real estate management. You need an accountant, a lawyer. You need all those traditional roles of capitalism because that's what we are. And
what we are is another story. But yeah, there are lots of jobs for people. I think, like everybody gets in doing their thing. It's like advice if people want to get in the industry. I was a writer. Now I'm a cannabis writer. I specialize in politics. Now we're about like legalization politics. You were saying about public relations, to Hollywood. I know you work for Rolling Stone. You met my idol, Hunter S. Thompson. It's a whole hell of a thing. He passed literally as I was like coming of age. It was like sad, but it's kind of crazy, like the nature of like the generations of like activists and like people in the industry and the movement and the culture.
But, I think what makes me, and I think not just me, but anyone who is an effective PR person, is that they believe in what they are talking about. Sales guys are a dime a dozen. But the publicists who are able to forge relationships with people like you are those who are not just selling all the time. We're resources of information. Because it's really I consider it my job and my role to be the smartest guy in the room when it comes time to talking about cannabis, pros, cons, all the different areas that come up, and I can connect people. I do it because I enjoy connecting people. I'm not only looking to work for clients, and now I'm semi-retired, so I'm just doing it because I believe in the plant and what it can accomplish and how it improves people's lives, and that it gives everybody a chance to do something different. You're not stuck working at IBM for 30 years, and that's the way it used to be. Now, we're taking in everybody, finding them a home, maybe even creating, ideally, generational wealth situations.
Yeah.
In the right for the right people, but we run into each other at cannabis events all the time. And that's another thing that I love is the networking component and making friends where people who I would never met before, if I didn't meet them at one of these events and smoke a joint or do a bong hit or do a dab with them or whatever. I think in my current life that most of my friends share my passion because they're from the space. And I don't know of too many industries that people can speak about it that way. Oh yeah, I'm in insurance. I'm really gung ho, or I'm in.
A lot of people are doing a job and making money. Like here, like we have like a lot of potheads that like really agree and like love this thing and have like a vested interest in like seeing this through and trying to make money off it. And they got values, So then it's really interesting. We have an industry of like the potheads, which are great to hang out with. We have sharks, and some of the sharks have no values, and then like that sucks. And fuck them. Yep. And then we have some sharks with some values and some potheads that are like sharks. And then we have the great nuance of business in Jersey. It's quite the ride.
It is, but that makes it interesting. I've never been in a non-interesting business. I've been very lucky. Movies, TV, magazines, and cannabis, where you're not meeting boring people. Not saying that traditional professionals are boring people, but I can't imagine the same kind of fun happens at an accounting conference that happens at a weed conference.
Yeah, like I think like by the very nature of weed, like it makes you happier. People like it. It's like we're all in on like the secrets, like it is like still like some camaraderie of like this taboo thing, and like we are all trailblazers. Like this is all unprecedented like shit. Like all this 300 dispensaries across the map there in Jersey. We have so many products. We have infused brownies. We didn't have infused brownies. We have churros, infused churros, like, which is really interesting. Like, we have this whole market. We have, like, a lot of interesting people in it. And, like, it is hard to, like, blaze a trail. And, like, that is how you kind of create, like, generational wealth. Like, I think about the pilgrims, like, pilgrims, blaze the trail. A lot of them fucking died. A lot of them got sick and, like, fucked off. Somebody might have gone back to England. But somebody created like wasp dynasties that survive to today, New England wasps. That way, you have generational wealth in like a lot of those like New England towns. And even around Jersey and like the Dutch and like in the English periodically, you have wasps that way. So then it's really interesting, for example, like the nature of that and say we're going to try to create that. But it's fucking hard, and like it's difficult, but like we're doing the thing. And then like, not everybody's cut out to be in business, and it's hard to be a small business person in the first place. But I think we're getting to about that time it is to like conclude, to have like some final stories of Hollywood and weed, maybe.
So 2 Hollywood and weed stories quickly. I worked on a couple Cheech and Chong films, and I made it a point to never party with celebrities, because I didn't want to become the guy to go off for weed when you're going to New York. That would have not been, but I had to smoke weed with Cheech and Chong. So they had a suite at the Plaza Hotel, and it was like, all right, who's got the better weed? So, well, of course they probably did, but I pull out in those days we would have film canisters full of cannabis.
Oh fuck yeah! It's a film canister. There's a thing that is.
Well, that's dating me too, but I brought it out, and then they'd bring it out, and I'd let them roll it because they rolled great joints, They were very anti other drugs at the time. They were not big psychedelic fans. They were very anti cocaine. But when it came to cannabis, whole nother situation. So that was pretty cool. And then I worked on Half Baked, which is another stoner classic. And from reading the script on the train home one night and just like holding my stomach from laughing so hard to Dave Chappelle and Jim Brewer working on the script in our offices on the same floor as me, and I had a private bathroom. So they would say, "Oh, we're going to go use your bathroom." They'd open a window and they'd smoke a joint, and I'd like knock on the door. I'm like, "Hello," So that was pretty cool.
God damn!
And
People like knew like Dave Chappelle like back in the day when they were making that. That's crazy.
yeah, and then when you look at Weeds, which was a television series based around a suburban mom having to sell cannabis because she couldn't really support her family any other way. And we did a scratch and sniff ad in Rolling Stone. You talk about going home again. So I was very involved with that and got a lot of publicity. But the interesting thing is the first time when I actually smelled it, I said, "This smells like weed I found in my closet after 2 years. This doesn't have that."
Oh, it didn't smell like good weed. Oh, that's the kind of like legalization. We have like such nuance and be like, it's like wine. Be like, oh, that's a great shit. I'm like, fuck that. I don't like that. Like if you buy the smell like wine, and then it's like so funny as like the nuance in like an era of legalization.
But breaking through, be playing a role in helping break through into, even though Rolling Stone isn't traditional media, it is traditional media, and have them be willing to take that scratch and sniff ad in a time when it certainly was not common, made news, and the show itself really broke through a lot of barriers and stuff. So
yeah, I love Nancy. That was a great show. It was an interesting show because there's a lot of like social commentary, but for like healthcare reform in the show. There's a lot of great, like actors. Kevin Nealon is in it. Oh my god, a lot of great episodes. One of the Olsen.
Yeah, and the same way at Playboy, Hugh Hefner was the first supporter of Normal, and Playboy was a very cannabis-friendly magazine.
Yeah.
Always supported it because he believed it fell under the First Amendment, and that's why he gave writers who are legendary the kind of platform to talk about it. And when he had Playboy After Dark, not only did he break barriers by having African American musicians on the show, they were smoking weed, man, in those parties. So, and at the Playboy Mansion, there was always weed being smoked. So, once again, it's this thread that has taken me through my career to the point where I'm at now, and I feel really privileged and lucky to have had that journey that I don't think anybody I know has enjoyed their career as much as I have. And I really believe that cannabis has played a major factor in it.
Awesome. That's a lot of like crazy good stories. A lot of good points there about like normalization, about culture and media, about hustling. So I want to thank you for being on our 11th episode here.
Well, thanks for having me. And 11's my lucky number. I'm going to buy a lottery ticket.
Nice. Good luck with that. Have a good day. We'll be in touch.
Thank you, Dan.
Take care, guys. Thank you for tuning in.